I'm sure a lot of you guys might be wondering where I've been, and well, if you follow my Instagram, I'm sure you'd have a little bit more of a better idea on where I've been or what I've been doing more so. But if you haven't understood yet, I've been hunting for whitetail during the rut in Wisconsin, bow hunting to be specific. And I've been going basically every single morning and night for the last 10 days straight. 2 days ago, I actually went for 8 hours straight in the morning until about noon. Maybe even 1 o'clock, to be honest. But yeah, 6 hours straight in a tree stand. That's a long time, at least for me. So anyways, I'm going to take you throughout the journey. Some of the good times, some of the bad times, and some of the most memorable times that I'm never going to forget. Okay, so here a nice forkhorn came walking by. Wasn't anything special, but it was a cool thing to see. Then I actually spotted a pretty decent buck. Now, unfortunately, my video camera decided not to work at this moment, but eventually it did, or at least I got some kind of footage. I think this might have came from my phone, but I had this buck broadside at 30 yards, and he stood there for 15 minutes. Did not flinch. I'm talking, most people would probably think it was a decoy, but it was him. And I think the reason that he stopped right there is because I put some Tink 69 down right on the crossing, and that is exactly where he stopped. I rattled him in and I put out a couple of grunts, so that's what got his attention. But for him to stop there and stay for 15 minutes, he must have been awfully content. Anyways, he just wasn't tall enough or big enough to take the shot, so I decided to pass him up, and this is him walking off. Then I saw this guy. This is quite the unique looking buck. He's a big 3-pointer, or potentially a 5-pointer. Anyways, he looks really tall and kind of decent mass, but he's just, I don't know, I think he just has bad genetics or something. And this case right here, this is the moment when a nice buck walked out past. This is the one that I wanted to get. But the thing is, he would not stop. You can see I'm at full draw right here. And that buck passes right past at about 35 yards. And he wouldn't stop. The thing is, this buck wasn't the biggest one that I saw. It was a good size one, for sure. But I knew there was one even bigger. This buck was about a 16-inch 8, maybe 5-6-inch G2s, and medium to decent mass. Nonetheless, I would have been super pumped with him. But since he wasn't stopping, I wasn't about to take a shot through all those trees there with him on the walk. It's just not going to happen. Even if he did stop, I don't even know if I would have had a shot. So watched him walk off, but the thing is, he never actually fully walked off. He just went out of sight. I know he's right there somewhere, but for the life of me, I could not find him again. And it's maybe because it's too thick there, but also this buck is so dark that he blends right in with all these trees, and they don't move. So when they're sitting still, you cannot tell the difference between the deer and the tree. You literally can't. Mainly because it's partially covered up by the tree. Obviously, if it was right out in the wide open, then yeah, you can tell if it's a deer or a tree. So anyways, never got a shot off on him. And as it got closer and closer to dark, I started hearing more and more deer nearby. Well, I thought it might have been him again. But in fact, it turned out there was another 3-point buck that walked right underneath the stand. So the next day comes along, and I spot a really good buck. The only thing is, he's out in the brush at about 50 yards. There he is, right there. Watch when he picks up his head. Look at that rack. That's a beautiful 8-point buck right there. And I tried so hard to get his attention, but he just wasn't interested in coming in. So he ended up walking off, and that was the last time I saw him. Shortly after that, a couple of does came walking by, including a mom and 3 fawns, which was a pretty cool sight, especially after getting burnt so much by that nice 8-point. So we decided to try out a new spot, and as soon as I got there, no more than 10 minutes into the stand, the buck that I wanted was right at the edge of my shooting distance. He was at 60 yards, but he was right next to that cornfield, and the grass is super, super tall there, so there was no reason for me to risk taking that shot on that buck. But it was still cool to watch and see that he was that close from being within range. So at this point, I'm trying to get his attention. I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to get him interested in coming in my direction instead of going back to the doe that he's with. I'm trying to make it seem like the doe that's with me is more enticing than the one that's with him. But unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work. And that is when everything changed. Because the next night, I went to the exact same spot. And well, unfortunately, the video camera again stopped working. I don't know why it stopped working, but it just kept saying memory full. Well, I took the chip out, made sure everything was deleted on the camera, and there was nothing on it at all. So there's plenty of space, but it still wouldn't record. So I didn't get any footage of him coming in. Meanwhile, I'm trying to record this whole time while he's coming towards me. But then I realized I should probably get ready, turned on my GoPro, and this is what happened. In the brush row, coming straight towards me, happens to be a really nice 8-point. He's a shooter for sure. The only thing is, it's really dense there and it's super difficult to be able to see him. With my GoPro, it's going to be extremely difficult, but just know he's going to be stepping out. Alright, here we go. He's stepping out right now. He's stepping out. Now we just got to get him to slow down. There he is, right there. 35 yards away.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I just freaking smoked him. Oh my god.
Now,
Oh my god.
I thought the shot was good. It looked really good from my point of view. And it would have been perfect had that buck actually been 35 yards like I thought he was. And that's what I had range for. So had that buck stopped at 35 yards, he would have been done. But because he didn't stop and kept walking about 5 yards further, he was actually 40 and not 35.
After that long, he just stepped out. Had him about 35 yards.
See? I thought he was 35 yards. And honestly, I could not believe it. At this point, I thought he was completely smoked. But then, the most wildest, craziest thing ever, and probably the worst possible thing you could ever have happen when you're hunting, happened. He popped out of the brush 60 yards away and was looking right at me. At that point, I knew the shot was not as good as I thought. So I immediately tried to put in another arrow, but by that time he was about 85 yards out, so there was no chance in getting a follow-up. At this point, all I could do was hope that the shot was good enough to be able to take him down. So, time to go down there and see what the blood is like. It's starting to get dark, and I really want to find out what happened. But this part was absolutely wild. I've never had anything like this happen in my entire life. The arrow did not have one speck of blood. But on the ground, there was blood all over. Instantly, upon impact, there was blood. There was not even a speck of blood, not even a hair on my arrow. But my arrow was a little bit wet, and so I figured that it must have been intestine. So at this point, I was a little bit skeptical on the shot. I already was quite a bit skeptical as soon as that buck stopped and looked at me at about 65 yards. But then, when I didn't see any blood on the arrow, and it was only clear slime, basically, I started having doubts and decided not to track this buck at all. Went inside, slept it off, and came back the next morning. And it was a really good trail. A really, really good trail. Like, this sign was so good. But in the back of my mind, I knew that there was still no blood on the arrow. So it was confusing to me as to how the trail could be that good, but yet there was no blood on my arrow. Anyways, tracked him for 200 yards without even looking for blood. Everything looked awesome. Get to a spot where he last bedded, and there was no deer there. So at this point, we thought, well, he should be down somewhere. And if not, then he shouldn't be that far away, because, I don't know, there's no reason for him to really leave. So what happens next is kind of unexplainable, but let's just say this. We got my buck on camera on a different stand 500 yards away, and we knew it was him because you could literally see the exact same spot that I would have possibly hit. I knew the shot would have been low, mainly because, well, there was no blood on my arrow, and two, because there was a chunk of white hair right next to the point of impact. But yeah, what are the odds that the exact buck that I shot went 500 yards away in the opposite direction from where I shot and went to a different stand, got him on camera, and got the exact angle that I took the shot at on camera as well, so you could literally tell that it was the exact same buck. Now the next question is whether or not it was going to go down, because from the angle here, it looks like that shot should potentially take down that buck. So recently I've been watching Facebook quite a bit and seeing a lot of these posts come up with advertisements to deer drone recoveries or drone recovery deer finder things. I don't know what they're called, to be honest, but I reached out to one of them to use the drone and figure out where my buck was. Well, of course, we went to the spot where we last had blood, and there was nothing within 200 yards of that area. So the good thing is, we weren't dumb and couldn't find it when we were trying to track it. It's just, it wasn't there. So then we kept looking around, maybe 500 yards away to the southwest side where there's a little woods, and he literally found my buck. It was standing there. And the only way that we could tell that it was him, one, is because I recognized how big the antlers were, and two, you could just see the tiniest hint of red on the chest, right underneath the heart and a little behind the heart. So I would say right in line with the bottom of the lung, but maybe a quarter inch below the lung. That quarter inch is what cost me this buck. But the good thing is, he's still perfectly healthy, and he's already out chasing does. Also, gun hunting is coming soon, so we're gonna get a second chance. Somebody will, at least. It's very disappointing to know that I didn't make a perfect shot, but also it's really satisfying to know that the deer is perfectly healthy. It's almost like he just got a scratch, right? And it goes to show you how tough these wildlife animals really are, you know, and obviously that's their instinct. They have that drive to want to survive no matter what. And this buck, he was literally chasing does and feeding in the woods, not limping even the slightest bit, not even tiny bit. He's perfectly healthy. But 1/4 of an inch would have made a whole big difference. That's it, 1/4 of an inch. And so I think that it's definitely a little bit my bad for not compensating the fact that as he kept walking, I didn't rearrange that spot. But I really didn't have a ton of time because that crossing is, it's like, now he's there, now he's gone. You literally have roughly 30 seconds to be able to get on him, pull back, and take the shot. Granted, in this case here, I saw him coming, so I was able to get a little bit ready. But by the time he gets there, you still only have like 15 seconds to take that shot. Or he's going to be behind grass and you're just not going to get a shot. As you saw, that one was at 50 yards, or 60 I think it was, but even if I wanted to take the shot, he was behind the grass, so you can't take that shot. So anyways, what I learned is always double check the range. Don't rush your shot. I don't think I rushed the shot, but I do think that I could have made a better shot if I would have thought in my brain to hold a little bit higher to compensate for that distance. Even though it was only 5 yards, in the back of my mind, I knew he wasn't in the exact same spot that he was when he stopped. And I should have been able to calculate that in my brain to hold just a little bit higher, hold top of the lung spine, and it would have sunk in there perfectly. But even mid-lung would have been fine. Instead, I was holding right on the top of the heart where the lung meets the shoulder blade. And that's all it took. That's all it took to not get this buck. But the good thing is, he's still out there. And I'm going to be back. Don't you worry. So yeah, that's where I've been. That's what I've been up to. And I hope you guys are having a successful hunt as well. Even though I didn't get this deer, I would say it's definitely a very successful hunt. To be able to have a deer come within shooting range, get a shot off, get blood on the ground, like, that's what it's all about. Also, I was able to get my dad, my brother, he brought his son out there, my other brother brought his 2 kids out there. So we were all sitting there tracking my deer, and we also were sitting there watching the whole drone recovery service take place. Yeah, that was a super, super cool moment. And yeah, it would have been way cooler if we could have just tracked the deer and found it. But I've done that before. I've never experienced the technology that we have now to be able to just fly over a drone. You're talking 400 or 500 yards up into the sky. You can go anywhere you want and zoom in 200 yards with heat vision. This thing has a thermal on it, so it literally picks up on heat, and it can show any animal that has life to it, essentially. Like, it was literally picking up cats. It was picking up swans, sandtail cranes, geese, ducks, even cows. And then, of course, it goes and shows you all the deer. So you can tell, of course, which one is the one that you shot. Mostly because that's the one that's down. But in my case, that was not what happened. And I never would have got to experience that had it turned out another way. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.